Hello and welcome to part 3 of Russian Accent for Actors. I'm Sasha Piltsin, Russian and Ukrainian dialect coach for film and television. This is a 3-part series and it really comes together if you go through all 3 parts. Links to the other parts are in the description below and also on the end screen. In this video, we bring it all together. How to use these tools, control the level of accent, and apply it in performance. When you get an audition, take your sides and grab a pen or a highlighter. Go through the text and mark the specific sounds you're choosing to adjust. Now, you're not marking every word, you're identifying patterns. Accent is not about changing everything, it's about making deliberate choices. You might decide that for your character, certain W words lean toward a V, but that doesn't mean that every W in the script changes. Instead, you create a pattern. Maybe what becomes vot, and every time that word appears throughout the script, you treat it the same way. Or you might decide to activate the E sound system. In that case, follow the same logic. Look for the words that contain that sound, pick the ones that feel natural to shift, and treat them consistently throughout the text. The consistency is what makes it believable. It's not about changing every W, TH, E, or other sounds. It's about choosing specific words to create patterns and then owning that choice throughout the text. You see, if we were to change every sound, it would sound exaggerated and unrealistic. Real Russian speakers are trying to speak correct English. Sometimes a sound slips, sometimes it comes out clean. That variation is human, and that's what sounds natural. In film and television, accents are rarely all or nothing. They live on a spectrum. Take a look at this breakdown. It will help you decide how far you want to push the accent for your character. The strength of the accent depends on how many of those sound patterns you activate. More for heavier accent, fewer for lighter one. But these levels are not fixed. They are there to guide you, not to lock you in. They give you a realistic spectrum of the accent, which sounds to bring in and which to ease off, and then you decide where your character lives within that. So you might land somewhere in between levels, and that's completely natural. What matters is understanding the patterns and learning how to control them. Being able to adjust that level depending on the scene, the character, or the director's notes, is one of the most valuable skills an actor can have. When you're playing a larger role, especially someone who speaks complex, elevated English, like a doctor or a politician or a scientist or a lawyer, the accent has to serve the intelligence of the character. If the language is sophisticated and precise, a heavy accent can feel mismatched. In those situations, the accent becomes more selective. You don't change very much. Instead, you let just a few consistent patterns appear, small signals that suggest the character's background without overwhelming the language. Often, this shows up in the vowel system. You might hear a mix-up between long and short E sounds, or you might hear a shift in the O and A relationship, where vowel sounds sound slightly denser and rounder. See, these patterns repeat just enough to sound natural, but they never dominate the speech. Learning an accent properly takes time, sometimes months, but even then, actors keep refining it throughout their careers. It's not something you learn once and move on from. It's a skill that you build, sharpen, and deepen over time. But in reality, especially with auditions, you usually don't get much time. You might get a day or two to prepare and still need to sound convincing. That's where my approach comes in. It's built for long-term accent work, but it also works immediately. You can use it to build something reliable quickly, even on short notice, and then continue developing it over time. Because what makes an accent believable isn't just time, it's repetition and control. The more you train these patterns, the more they settle into your muscle memory. And when that happens, the accent stops feeling like a trick and becomes part of your instrument. Almost like something you can switch on when the scene begins. So here's the step-by-step process I suggest when building the Russian accent. The first step is matching the level of accent to the level of English your character speaks. Not every character has the same relationship with English. Some speak it very fluently, some less so, and that affects how strong the accent should be. So before anything else, decide where on that spectrum your character lives. The second step is adjusting the physical posture of the accent. For Russian speakers, you'll usually notice a little more muscular tension in the mouth, slightly less jaw opening, and the lips coming a bit more forward. The tongue also tends to press closer to the upper teeth instead of the alveolar ridge that English speakers often use. These small physical adjustments immediately start shaping the sound. Step 3 is choosing a few consistent sound patterns. And remember, don't change everything. That's where many accents become chaotic. Instead, choose a few key sounds, for example the TH sound, the W sound, certain vowel sounds, and some consonants. Apply those changes consistently. Consistency is much more convincing than randomness. Step 4 is something that most actors miss. Mark your script. Don't rely on memory. When you're working with an accent, your brain is already doing a lot of work. Mark the sounds, highlight the places where shifts happen, and give yourself visual cues so the accent stays stable throughout the scene. Step 5 is very important. Run your accent through emotion. Practice it when you're calm, but also when you're angry, urgent, or under pressure. You see, emotion changes breathing, rhythm, and muscle tension. If the accent only works in neutral state, it won't survive the performance. The control needs to stay intact, even when the scene becomes emotional. And finally, step 6. Practice, and then practice again. Repetition is what turns technique into instinct. The goal is not to think about the accent while you're acting. The goal is for the accent to become automatic, so you can stay fully present in the scene. So, this is your full roadmap. Everything you need is here: the sounds, the choices, and how to build them into your work. Take it piece by piece. Stay selective, stay consistent. Let the accent grow into something that feels natural and reliable. When it's trained properly, it stops being something you add and becomes something you can simply step into when the scene begins. Thanks for watching, and break a leg.